If the whip continues to be suspended, as you know, that would mean Lee Anderson can't stand again in his constituency as the Conservative candidate. And that then raises the intriguing possibility, might it actually be very attractive for him to move across to
Yep.
Reform and stand as a Reform candidate?
Well, joining us now is our very own Adam Boulton. Was very keen to get Adam's views on what's happening. Adam, welcome.
Welcome. It's very nice to be asked to comment on this.
Well, Adam, I always think you've got interesting things to say. And look, it has been a big afternoon. What was your reaction to the news? Were you surprised that this happened? Because it looked like a couple of messages had gone out saying that actually maybe Lee Anderson might cling on.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the pressure's been mounting on the Prime Minister to do something about this, not least because pressure mounted earlier on the leader of the Labour Party to do something about comments made seen as being anti-Semitic by the party's candidate in the upcoming Rochdale by-election, and it took him 48 hours, and eventually he disowned Asnar Ali. And I think there was almost in the public eye a sort of trial of strength. If Starmer was going to do that, would Rishi stand up to these comments made by Lee Anderson? Now, he has stood up to him. I think it's pretty clear from what the chief whip has said that he's had the whip suspended for refusing to apologise, that perhaps they were hoping that Lee Anderson would decide to apologise, and one would infer from that he would have stayed. But, you know, what's interesting in listening to what Saeed Abbasi was just saying to you, Aisha, is this is all about the ongoing Conservative wars, isn't it? I mean, whether or not Lee Anderson blundered into it on GB News making those remarks, there's no doubt that he was appearing on a channel that's sympathetic to those sort of attitudes. And we've seen this week Paul Marshall, one of the chief funders of GB News, his private tweets have been exposed, showing that he certainly supports these sort of views. Now, Lee Anderson deciding to press on with this, and bear in mind that he's paid more for working on GB News than he is paid for being an MP, clearly means that he wants to cause trouble within the party. And then questions do arise. Will he defect to Reform, or will he simply try to be one of those mobilising anti-Sunak opinion in the party? And as you know, there's a double-page spread in the Times newspaper today looking at that. So this causes a lot of problems. And, you know, technically, if the whip continues to be suspended, as you know, that would mean Lee Anderson can't stand again in his constituency as the Conservative candidate. And that then raises the intriguing possibility, might it actually be very attractive for him to move across to Reform and stand as a Reform candidate? So we've got to think about that. I think the other thing we need to think about is the upcoming London mayoral contest, because these are very direct slurs made against Sadiq Khan, the Labour candidate and the current mayor, is saying that he's in the pocket of, quote, Islamists. It'll be interesting to see what Susan Hall, who is the Conservative candidate, who's certainly been outspoken in the past, has to say about this particular matter. And it could be awkward for her. And again, as I say, this just simply continues the unrest in the Conservative Party, failing really to unite ahead of a general election.
And of course, we will also have the Rochdale by-election on Thursday as well. And that will be very interesting because, of course, George Galloway is running in that. I mean, I'm also hearing rumours that there's even a chance that the Labour candidate who stood down, who's now an independent, he might have a chance of winning there. So it's all going to, there's lots of twists and turns in this story. Yeah, Adam, great to catch up with you and great to get your analysis. Thank you very much for your time. That's our very own Adam Boulton. Of course, you can hear Adam Boulton and Kate McCann on our flagship Sunday morning political show here on Times Radio.
Glad that finally the party have realised that Lee's views are not the kind of views we want within the party. It isn't just, it's a timely response to his latest rant, but it isn't a timely response to Lee Anderson, who for many, many years has been making racist racist and misogynistic comments. Indeed, from the point that he became a candidate, there were concerns raised about the way he was campaigning and the comments that he was making. The party have been made aware of this over many, many years. And I think this is part of the worry for me, that over a period of time, my party has slowly started to be taken over by an extreme view, which is not just, I mean, Lee Anderson is really the tip of the iceberg. We've heard these comments in campaigning. We heard them post Brexit. We've heard them more recently on the floor of the House with people like Robert Jenrick. We've seen them in newspaper articles with people like Suella Braverman. We've seen these views expressed by donors, by party members, online, in meetings. It goes on and on and on. And it is why for years I campaigned for an independent inquiry into anti-Muslim racism and Islamophobia within the party. We had a report. I think tragically it fell short. It was a whitewash of a report. It did not have the confidence of any British Muslims within the party. It didn't interview or use the evidence of most British Muslims who gave very clear concerns to that inquiry, and it didn't follow the evidence. And it's because it was such a whitewash that we find ourselves here again today, and this time in very, very dangerous times.
And look, there's been a huge amount of condemnation against Lee Anderson's comments. We've seen Sajid Javid, of course, yourself, Nazgani, others as well have spoken out. But of course, there are other prominent conservative figures who are dominating the headlines at the moment, who are making a similar argument, not the same argument he made specifically about Sadiq Khan, but certainly inferring, using the phrase Islamist in a way to confuse people and almost indicate that sort of anyone connected to Islam is somehow a bad person and that bad things are going on. We know that Suella Braverman has written a piece. We've had Liz Truss out in Washington making a similar comments. Robert Jenrick has also written about this. How much pressure do you think Rishi Sunak will be under about these people? Or, as my previous correspondent, Martina, said, he might not be that bothered about those other comments?
I suppose it depends on how seriously the Prime Minister takes these issues. I think the term Islamist has so many different interpretations and is often used by Islamophobes and people who are anti-Muslim as a bit of a cover, because they don't just want to say all Muslims. But actually, if you listen to the general public, and there's been much research on this, when people use the term Islamist, Joe Public interprets that to mean Muslims. I wrote about this at some length in my book. It has so many different interpretations. It's why I chose not to use the word Islamist. I mean, it is basically, in a nutshell, a political manifestation of the faith. But it's why I choose not to use, for example, terms like Zionist, because again, that again is misinterpreted and misused by people to mean Jewish people. So I think it's important that we clamp down on language that can be interpreted and misinterpreted and used as a cover for racism when it's apparent from the person who's saying it and the way in which the public see it that this is simply a term that's being used as a cover for racism.